Greetings, mortals. Some say the earth forgets that time buries secrets so deep they're lost forever. But tonight, I'll show you 3 cases that prove otherwise. 3 ancient forces still stirring beneath our feet, stalking through our fog, floating just under the surface of still water.
Tonight, we don't chase legends, we answer them. Because across continents and centuries, 3 creatures keep returning. Whispered in folklore, eyewitnessed in panic. They are not echoes, they are warnings. Our first tale takes us to the vast forests and farmlands of Brazil, where something massive writhes beneath the soil. The ground shakes, roads crack, livestock vanish. And from the dirt, witnesses claim to see something armored, coiled, and breathing. They call it Minhocão, a name that translates simply to big earthworm, though what lies below is no worm. It is an underground leviathan, older than language, that moves with the force of tectonic plates. Then we travel to the haunting moors of southern England, rolling hills blanketed in mist, where a shadow moves just outside torchlight. No clear form, just panting breath, slit eyes, and the tension of being watched. For centuries, it has been called a demon dog, a black beast, a phantom predator. But it doesn't howl. It stalks, silent, relentless, and those who look too long into the fog often don't return. Finally, the cold glacial rivers of Patagonia, waters that seem still, too still, a floating shape that mimics discarded skin, no limbs, no face, until it's too close. Locals call it El Cuero, the hide, a deceptive predator that draws you near, then lashes out, wrapping around its prey, puncturing skin with hidden spines, and draining them until nothing is left but silence. A creature so feared, it is said to remember those who speak its name in jest. These stories are not isolated. They are persistent, connected by the pattern of vanishing lives, of ground disturbed, of waters refusing to reflect. Something old is stirring beneath, above, and all around us. These are not legends left behind. They are markers, messages. So tonight I ask you not to listen for answers, but for echoes, because the earth might not speak clearly, but it remembers. This is Tapes of the Lost. Let's begin where the ground isn't stable, and never was. Brazil, a land of dense forest, forgotten caves, and myths older than any map. In the 19th century, as European settlers expanded and cities like São Paulo grew, something else began to surface, or rather, something underneath started making itself known. Reports first appeared in rural newspapers, massive trenches forming overnight, roads buckling for no reason, and the ground trembling like a heartbeat. Some blamed sinkholes, others said it was a giant snake, but one word kept resurfacing: Minhocão. From the Portuguese minhoca, meaning earthworm, and a suffix for something enormous, Minhocão means giant worm. But this isn't a garden pest. Eyewitnesses described a creature anywhere from 20 to 80 meters long, thick as a railway car, armored in plates like bark or steel, and moving with a guttural rhythmic motion. Not slithering, burrowing. In 1899, in the outskirts of São Paulo, a trench 5 feet wide and 300 feet long opened overnight. No rain, no quake. Locals said they heard groaning beneath their homes, like something breathing. A farmer swore he saw a tree-thick form moving under the dirt like a shadow. The soil remained hot for days. Then in 1948 in Rio Grande do Sul, another incident. A section of field was torn up like it had been struck by lightning. but with no burns. A worker reported seeing an armored head the size of a cart horse rise briefly from the soil before vanishing. It breathed like an ox, he said. Wet, loud, real. Some scientists offered theories: a misidentified giant caecilian, a type of legless amphibian, or perhaps a surviving prehistoric species, a holdout from the Permian era. But none could explain the seismic-like vibrations, or why local cattle kept vanishing without a trace, as if swallowed by the earth itself. Things quieted for decades, until 2004. A geotechnical team drilling outside Paraná vanished 2 crew members during a routine bore. The lead engineer reported hearing a pulsing sound, slow and rhythmic, beneath the bedrock. Not mechanical, organic. The project was halted. Equipment was left behind. The missing men were never found. One was heard briefly over a walkie. It's alive. Then silence. What makes Minhocão truly disturbing is not just the sightings, but the consistency. It never surfaces completely, never attacks in the open. It moves, beneath, watching, testing, like something intelligent enough to learn from our infrastructure, our roads, sewers, dams. In rural folklore, the creature is called an earth demon or a punisher, a being awakened by excessive mining or deforestation. Locals say it appears after ecological disruptions, when the balance is broken. A chilling tale from a village elder recalls a time when villagers attempted to dynamite a hillside for farmland. That night, tremors shook the valley. By morning, 1/3 of the village was gone. Just gone. The ground had folded inward, and still, no bodies were found. We spoke to Maria Lucia da Silva, now 84, who remembers the incident. There was a sound, deep, like thunder underground. The cows started panicking before the earth even moved. She pauses. When we tried to pray, the ground answered first. Despite decades of silence in the press, strange patterns continue. Isolated quakes with no tectonic cause, livestock vanishing, strange grooves appearing in the soil, and sound recordings, low-frequency rumbles resembling breathing, captured deep underground. But the twist? Some believe it isn't a creature at all. One theory from Brazilian paranormal researchers proposes that Minhocão is not an animal, but a sentient earth form, a kind of elemental intelligence made flesh. In this theory, the worm is just the visible part of something far vaster, a network of tendrils spanning continents, a planetary immune response, something that activates when the Earth itself is under attack. And if that's true, then the sightings aren't attacks. They're symptoms, like a fever or a warning. In 2017, seismic researchers in Paraná mapped a cluster of non-volcanic tremors that traced a perfect arc, like a path. The epicenters aligned with old folklore hot zones. When a professor joked in an interview, "Maybe it's Minhocão's spine," the network threatened his grant. Not because it was silly, because they'd mapped it too. But they didn't want people asking questions. Which leads to the final thread: secrecy. Several major infrastructure projects in Brazil have been delayed with no public explanation, just sealed reports, sudden site closures, and personnel transfers. One insider confessed anonymously, "We drilled into something we shouldn't have. It moved." One disturbing case involved a subway expansion in Belo Horizonte in 2012. Engineers reported a complete failure of underground imaging equipment. The digital mapping returned only one thing: a distorted heat signature stretching for kilometers. Thermal fluctuations were rhythmic, like breathing. Within 2 weeks, the entire crew was reassigned. No further updates were made public. Locals continued to report strange happenings: vibrating kitchen floors, humming that seems to come from the earth itself, shadows that flicker across the surface of plowed fields with nothing above to cast them. A geologist from the University of São Paulo, under anonymity, leaked a 2020 internal report. It showed 3 massive cavities beneath the central region of Brazil, completely detached from any known cave systems. The soil around the voids was compressed in spirals, like something moved through it. Alive. Deliberate. And here's what haunts the researchers. These formations are expanding. So what is the Minhocão, a remnant of ancient biology, misunderstood and magnified through myth? A cryptid too large to hide but too deep to study? Or something far older? A force with no origin story, no need for one. When we stare into the unknown, we often hope to find a missing link, a new species, an answer that feels scientific. But not everything buried is meant to be uncovered. Some things sleep for a reason, and others dig. England is no stranger to ghosts, but some of them still have flesh. The moors of Dartmoor stretch like forgotten bones, rolling hills covered in grass, fog, and the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. For centuries, something has prowled these mists. It doesn't howl, it doesn't roar, but it stalks. And when it's near, even the crows go quiet. Locals speak of it with a mix of fear and habit, as if it were weather, a black beast, 4-legged, larger than a dog, larger than a panther even. No one agrees on the species, only that it's fast, it's silent, and it watches from the edges of sight. In folklore, Dartmoor is the domain of the Yeth-hound, a spectral dog that wanders the moors crying for its lost soul. In some tales, it's the Black Shuck, a demon with glowing red eyes that brings death within a year of its sighting. But those were just legends, until bodies started piling up. In 1977, Marytown Farm became ground zero. Over 30 sheep were found with their throats torn open. No drag marks, no tracks, no blood trails. The corpses were undisturbed, as if placed carefully. The farmer, Thomas Greaves, said it looked surgical. They weren't eaten, he added, just muted, silenced. Local authorities blamed wild dogs, but that same month, hikers reported hearing panting breath following them across the moor for miles, low, raspy, and constant. When they turned, the mist showed nothing. Then in 2006, a BBC documentary crew filming Dartmoor folklore caught something on tape. Or rather, they almost did. Mid-shoot, their equipment malfunctioned. The footage showed a pair of glowing eyes briefly reflecting in the fog. Then a massive, hulking form moved across the background, fast and low. Audio cut out. The raw footage was reportedly corrupted. Only stills survived. The crew refused to comment. Patterns began to emerge. Sightings spiked during supermoons and equinoxes, often around ancient stone circles or barrows. Some believe the creature is linked not just to animal instincts, but to ritual, to place, to time. A guardian, perhaps, or something older. A woman named Elsie Wren, now 72, recalls being followed on the moor in 1963. I was alone, dusk, heard the breath, closer each time, never saw it, but my torch flickered like mad. Then it just stopped, like it decided I wasn't worth it. Her eyes dim. I never walked there again. What's especially unsettling is the lack of any ecological evidence. There are no large predator species confirmed in Dartmoor, no wolves, no panthers, and yet campers vanish. Their tents are found intact, ripped from the inside. In 2011, a pair of amateur survivalists disappeared near Crockern Tor. Their gear was discovered a week later. Food uneaten, fire pit cold, tent shredded, no blood, just claw marks on the inside of the nylon. Their last message on a handheld recorder: "We're not alone out here." Some cryptozoologists suggest a mutation of a big cat escaped from private collections during the 1976 Dangerous Wild Animals Act. But big cats don't avoid cameras, they don't shred tents from within, and they don't move without sound. An alternate theory? The beast is not one animal, but a presence, something that takes form through local fear, collective trauma, or energy stored in the moor itself. A psychic imprint that manifests when conditions align. British Army reports from 1993 detail night training exercises interrupted by hallucinations in the fog. Soldiers described seeing dark silhouettes, hearing low growls, and feeling pressure on their chests, as if something was watching them through the mist. Official cause: atmospheric anomalies. And then there are the panting incidents. Over 40 documented cases of hikers hearing heavy, labored breathing near them, always at night, always when alone. In some accounts, they say it matched their pace, that it mirrored them, like it was learning. In 2018, a biologist camping to study owls near Wistman's Wood recorded low-frequency audio across 3 nights. What she captured was chilling, a pattern of exhalation, slow and wet, like something massive sleeping nearby. Each night, the breathing moved closer, yet nothing stirred the underbrush. She left on the 4th morning, and hasn't returned to the moor since. One local pub owner, Harold Ticehurst, claims his dog refuses to cross certain trails after dark. He'll dig in, growl and cry, Harold says. Doesn't matter how many times we've gone down that path in daylight. Something changes at night, and I trust his instincts more than mine. In 2020, a thermal drone survey conducted by a university group picked up something massive moving through a fog bank, measuring nearly 9 feet long, low to the ground, warm-bodied. But when they reviewed the footage, the shape stopped and slowly turned toward the camera. The drone lost signal. Most dismissed it as a glitch. The team never returned to that area. Then there are the testimonies too strange to dismiss. One man claimed he watched a black shape split into 2, like a shadow dividing, before both faded into mist. Another said he was lost for hours in daylight on the moor, walking in circles, hearing something circle him, only to realize later he'd been walking over the same track, his own, and a child, age 9, went missing for 3 hours while on a family hike. Found asleep in a thicket, no memory of leaving. When asked what happened, he said simply, "The dog made me stay still, so I did." There was no dog. Researchers have tried mapping sightings across time and topography. A chilling pattern emerged, a spiral formation centered around Wistman's Wood, radiating outward like territory, as if something claims the moor and expands when unnoticed. The question remains, why now? Why does the pattern seem to be accelerating? Some believe the beast is tied to ancient energies, ley lines perhaps, or sacred geometry buried beneath the stones. Others suggest something simpler, more primal. The moor itself is alive, conscious, and what we call the beast is just its mouth. Whatever the truth, one fact remains: it is patient, it is territorial, and it is very, very good at hiding. So if you ever find yourself on Dartmoor and the mist thickens and the wind dies down, listen closely. Not for footsteps, but for breath, yours, and something else. And if it follows, don't run. It already knows your pace. Some monsters charge at you, others drift. In the southern reaches of Chile, deep in Patagonia, where the Andes carve cold silence into the land, there are lakes that never ripple. Locals say those waters are cursed, not haunted, guarded, because something waits beneath. It's called El Cuero, In Spanish, it means the leather or the hide, but this is no discarded pelt. It floats like an animal skin laid flat on the surface, motionless, eyeless, until it's too late. The Mapuche people native to the region have whispered about it for generations. They describe a thing with skin like cowhide, eyes on stalks, a mouth on its underside, and spines hidden across its edges. It's a mimic. It doesn't chase, it invites. Victims are lured in by what looks like a floating carcass, just close enough to touch. Then, in a flash, it wraps around them. The spines puncture, the mouth seals, and the body is drained of blood. No thrashing, no struggle, just one less person and still water. In 1983, at Lago Riesco, a fisherman was found near the shore. He'd been missing for 3 days. His body showed no signs of injury, except for tiny pin-sized holes on his ankles and neck. His skin was gray. Medical examiners said he died of sudden circulatory collapse. Locals had another word, el Cuero. Then came the video. In 2011, a British kayaker's GoPro surfaced after he went missing. The footage is shaky, erratic, but the audio is worse. Splashing, his breathing turning to panic, a shout, then a scream cut short. One frame shows something rising from beneath. A ripple, a shape. Smooth, pale, wrinkled. The video was taken down within 48 hours. Family never spoke publicly. Some believe El Cuero is a species, a cryptid akin to a giant flatworm, evolved to use natural camouflage in lakes. But others say it's not a predator at all. It's a punishment, a river spirit created when sacred waters are polluted or disrespected. A shaman in Coyhaique once said, "It remembers faces. It returns for those who mock it." In 1997, a group of teenagers reportedly filmed themselves throwing trash into Lago Negro, laughing, daring the beast to appear. 1 month later, 2 were found drowned in shallow water. The third disappeared entirely. The footage? Never released. But a cousin leaked a transcript of the audio. The last words captured? "Wait, the leather's moving." Reports stretch back centuries. Spanish settlers feared bathing alone. Some lakes were avoided entirely. One expedition in the 1700s noted a floating animal, inert but watching, in their journal. The next page was stained with water and illegible. Patterns emerge. The attacks happen during dry spells when the water is stillest. Victims are always alone, and there are never signs of a struggle, just silence and a sense that the lake is somehow fuller. One hydroelectric survey in 2009 recorded electromagnetic anomalies in Lago Puelo. Their instruments showed pulses, regular, rhythmic, like sonar. When divers were sent in, one surfaced shaking, refusing to return. He claimed to have seen a skin rise from the lake bed, breathing like a bellows. The project was relocated. And here's the unnerving part. Sightings have increased. Locals now say 3 separate lakes near Coyhaique refuse birds. No ducks, no insects, no sound. A professor studying indigenous cryptids wrote, "If the stories are true, El Cuero is not unique. It's a type, a pattern, an organism or entity that appears where memory holds a grudge and water never forgets." There's a theory that El Cuero isn't biological, that it's a form of cursed matter, leathered regret soaked in vengeance. Not alive, not dead, just reactive, like the lake itself learned hunger. And what's most terrifying? The mimicry. Some reports suggest El Cuero imitates voices. One child claimed he heard his mother calling from the lake at dusk. She had died the year before. When he approached the water, he said it whispered her lullaby back to him. He never swam again. In 2022, a Chilean environmental team monitoring algal blooms placed underwater drones into Lago Verde. They lost contact within minutes. One drone was recovered. Its footage showed a dark shape enveloping the lens. The onboard microphone picked up a single noise, a heartbeat. Slow, wet, then static. A researcher later said, "It felt like it wasn't curious. It was waiting." Older generations believe each lake touched by El Cuero contains its own entity. That these aren't random predators but ancient protectors, summoned when humans take too much. One Mapuche elder described them as wounds the land has kept open. "You don't heal them," he said. "You respect them, or they reopen." Multiple lakes across Patagonia share eerily similar myths, despite vast distances. This has led some to speculate a migratory pattern, perhaps triggered by seismic activity, climate change, or even memory. One theory suggests that El Cuero is drawn to death, that it's not just a hunter, but a collector of grief. Which would explain the disappearances, because the waters don't just drown, they remember. So what is El Cuero? A cryptid, an elemental, a guardian, a ghost, or something else? Something deeper than name, more ancient than myth, and closer than we think? Because sometimes evil doesn't come on legs or claws. Sometimes it floats.
So walk lightly, listen closely, and remember, if you ever feel something watching from beneath the ground, or through the mist, or from just below the water's edge, you are never alone. This has been Tapes of the Lost.